you can begin to feel like there's something wrong with you if you don't fall into a few certain categories.
Some people feel bad about a certain part of their personality type that they feel like is lesser than. There's no preferred types. Like, every type is needed. But when you start to look at society, you see the wonderful contribution of all 16 types. Okay, this knowledge can be so freeing to you and empowering to you if you know these things. So life-changing for so many people in so many different ways. Even one of them was like, I need to apologize to my staff. There's been some major changes that have come when people learn I have been overextending or in a spot that didn't fit me well. It's really cool to see. Apply it to myself, to my marriage, to my kids. Oh my gosh, it's helped me so much with parenting. For them to love their workplace because they're seen and heard for who they are, and they're put in a spot where they can thrive, makes me so happy. There's nothing wrong or right about being extroverted or introverted.
Doesn't matter if you're E or I.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So he was probably an ISFP, but anyway.
I love that.
There's actually a personality reason why she's good at that. Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, is that a teaser? Like, do we have to?
Yes, it is.
Welcome to Commercially Speaking. I'm Timmy Barron, ADHD.
I'm Bo Barron, CCIO.
And this is the Commercial Real Estate Podcast where Bo teaches me about commercial real estate investing. I'm an actor and comedian. I've got no use for this information, but I do want to learn as much about commercial real estate just so I can make fun of commercial real estate investors.
Yeah.
Right? We're also trying to get Barbara Corcoran on the show. The more subscribers we got, the bigger the guests. That's where you come in and you can really help out. Hit subscribe on right there on that that button that says it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, but today it's super special episode.
Oh yeah, we have a special guest, but this was your idea.
Yeah.
We were, and I don't remember what episode it was. We were talking about somehow personality came into it.
Yeah, we were talking about that. That one Christmas.
There was a Christmas where, and Autumn even talks about this. She was talking about this the other day.
This is a game changer for our family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this really freed up Autumn in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
But Codie had us all take, and my first reaction to this, if I'm being honest, was like, I don't want to take a stupid test. But it's not a test.
Yeah. That's right.
Right? You can't call it a test. Anyway.
Yeah. That's your first reaction to everything, though.
Maybe so.
It's not in your schedule already.
So we took this assessment. Like, did Alice put that on my schedule?
Yeah.
But no.
Yeah.
But we all took this assessment, and Codie showed up to Christmas Eve, which traditionally, for our listeners, Christmas Eve for years, and as we've gotten older and we live in different places, it's fizzled a little bit. But all the siblings, mom and dad, and our spouses and our kids, we'd all get together for Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd open our stockings. And so Codie brought the gift of our types.
Mm-hmm.
And had a little printout.
Personality
I think he even rolled
types.
them up as scrolls, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're unrolling all this information about who we are. Mm-hmm. And we start reading these, and it's like, I was doing this. I wasn't really paying attention to the room. But my guess is, if you were like watching everybody, I bet light bulbs were going on.
They were.
All over the room.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how Autumn talks about it, is like, she got a huge dose of self-awareness, and it freed her up to be herself more.
Yes.
And that it was okay to be how God made her.
Yes.
And so
same with
it was really,
mm-hmm.
yeah. But that was a really cool.
It was.
And then we went around and, shared and talked about our favorite subjects, which are ourselves.
So, listeners, I want to introduce you. Bo and I would like to introduce you to Codie. Codie Barron. I was about to say Codie Barron. Our sister Codie Barron, but it's Klinock. Codie Klinock. Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Codie Klinock.
I don't know that I've actually said that out loud.
I don't know if I have either.
I don't think y'all practiced.
Yeah. Recently married, so it's a new last name. But yes, Klinock. Codie, thanks for being here.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we got Gunnar, our nephew, in the corner taking a peek in. He might say something here and there.
I'm trying really hard not to.
Yeah.
Say hello.
Hello, I'm trying really hard not to say anything, so hopefully you won't hear me.
Well, yeah, cool. If you end up doing it, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Totally fine. But Codie, the reason we have you here is not just because you're our sister and we love you, right? And that's a given. But you gave our family a gift that Christmas, which was all of us recognizing ourselves through the lens of Myers-Briggs Personality Test. And
Types.
Personality types. Oh yeah, types, of course. But yeah, if you don't mind, like, talking to us about, because I don't know if I've heard your side of the story of leading up to that Christmas and your introduction into Myers-Briggs as well. But yeah, maybe. Yeah, we'll kick it off from there.
Sure, okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy to share.
Okay.
So it became a trend on Facebook, and I just had a friend on Facebook who tagged me, take this assessment, and so I took it, and I started reading about myself. And I thought, oh, just like you guys are describing, huge dose of self-awareness, super interesting to me. I think at the time I had just had my second child. So Lucy was born, it was like 2008. So I'd been married for 8 years. So that's long enough to be like, hey, my husband and I really get along in these circumstances and really struggle getting along in these situations. What's going on here? So as I was reading about my type, and then I had him take the assessment, I was reading about his type, all kinds of light bulbs were going off for me too, and just understanding what was causing some of the sticking points for us. And so then I just became curious about everybody around me. And so I wanted to know if they had taken it or not, and had them take the assessment, what's your type? And so for the family, obviously, you guys took the assessment, and I printed out the information, rolled it up, put a little bow on it, and I was curious for us to, have everybody. Did they read it themselves? I think each person read their own.
Yeah, I don't.
Out loud.
I'm trying to remember. What do you remember us read? Because I kind of vaguely remember other people reading.
Maybe.
I don't remember.
Well, I think some people didn't. Like, maybe you read Autumn's. I think I ended up reading Mom's out loud. Some people read their own. You probably did. Tons of laughter, because it nails you, right? I mean, it just describes you so accurately. And then I remember we got to Mom's, and it wasn't very accurate, because I think the first time she took it, it came out a type that she's realized, it's different. And so we were like, she came out introverted.
I don't remember that.
And we were like, no, you're not introverted.
I love
she's
you,
a mom
Mom.
of 6, and she was probably exhausted,
Yeah.
So sometimes you take the assessment and the mindset, of, oh my gosh, I would love alone time right now. That doesn't necessarily mean you prefer introversion,
Right.
But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I got started with it.
Yes. Well, tell us a little, because did you have some?
Oh, I've got questions.
Yes, please.
What you mentioned that, light bulbs are going off for you and specifically in your marriage at the time. Like, can you give us some examples of what some of those, like you don't have to be real specific, but what are some examples of some of the light bulbs that come on when you're starting to understand your type?
Sure. So one of the categories of the Myers-Briggs talks about how you make decisions, and it's either thinking or feeling, and everybody uses both thinking and feeling mental functions when they make a decision, but one is considered like your home base. So my preference, for instance, is thinking.
Preach.
And so, yes. And so I don't even have to remind myself to use logic, step back, be objective, weigh pros and cons. It's just what my mind naturally does every time I make a decision. Then I've learned through experiences and failures and other people teaching me, oh yeah, you have to also put yourself in other people's shoes and be empathetic and see how it affects the people around you, and think through values, and that's more of the feeling function. So everybody uses both, but you typically use one first and more naturally and rely on it more heavily. And so in marriage, you learn really quickly, like, are you the same in that, or are you different? Right? So
Different.
Different. Well, it might be similar. Anyway, yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking.
And you guys were different.
We were different, yeah. And now my second marriage, also different in that category. But I'm used to it now. I'm like, I got this. I know what it's like being married to somebody who prefers feeling.
Yeah. Brad was ENFP, right?
Yes.
Yes, which is mine. And are you ENFP, Gunnar? You are as well.
Yes.
ENFP as well. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And I mean, growing up with you helped me understand Brad. Being married to Brad helped me understand you. You know, like it's when you start to understand type, you see the world through it. It's kind of a filter you see the world through. And it's like, okay, I get what ENFPs are like. And ENFP describes your home base. So you're extroverted, but it doesn't mean that you don't sometimes introvert. You do.
Yeah.
And you prefer intuition and feeling and perceiving, but you also do the other things. But this is home base. ENFP represents home base. So when I get to understand what it's like to be around an ENFP, what it's like to hang out with them, or what it's like to work on a project with them, and then you can appreciate what they bring to the table, and you also can be aware of maybe some limitations or weaknesses, so you adjust expectations accordingly. Then when you go into a new situation, you identify, okay, this is kind of the same feel. I think I'm dealing with the ENFP. It gives you such an advantage to set expectations like accurately, not to pigeonhole, I don't mean that, but to maybe just be a little more informed on this person's home base, because you kind of understand the ENFP home base. Now, two ENFPs are going to be different in lots of ways, okay? So these are generalities, but once you get into it, you realize it's super accurate and helpful.
Yeah.
So when all of us took this assessment and you were, rolling up the scrolls and putting the bows on it, like, were you surprised? Like, had you nailed everybody, or were there any that surprised you?
I'm trying to think. Did you guys actually take an assessment online, and then I just printed out what you took? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I feel
so
like
I didn't. I wasn't choosing for you guys. I just printed out. I had opinions. I always have an opinion if I know the person, if the results are accurate or not. So when I say if the results are accurate, the results simply reflect the way you answer the questions. So it's accurate based on how self-aware you are. So, for instance, so I run into this quite a bit. Let's say somebody is in a working environment where it's definitely preferable to be extroverted. Maybe it's a sales environment, or definitely preferable to be organized, specific, logical, and have your act together. More people come out as ESTJs, for instance, than there actually are ESTJs in the room. And it's because that is the lifted up type in that culture that they're in. And so they're taking the test as what they're trying to grow in, as opposed to their raw material. This is who I am. Shoes off mentality is what it's called. Like, just shoes off mentality. End of the day, take your shoes off. Relax. This is who you are when you get to choose to be who you are. Not when it's like, okay, I got to work hard at work because this particular culture or task pushes me a little bit past what my norm is, which is great. It's great to do that. But at first, when you take the assessment, we're looking for home base. So you have to be in the right mindset. Also, it's interesting when I've assessed people in ministry. I've done a lot of assessments with churches and campus outreach ministry. The culture there is different. It's more feeling is more preferred, because ministry is you're working with people and empathy and compassion and all that. And so sometimes it's difficult for people to see or admit that they're a T, or they feel apologetic that they are. They feel bad that they are. And they're aware that maybe they're a little more harsh in dealing with people than other people around them in the ministry, where the F, it comes more natural for them. So it kind of depends on the culture that you're in.
Well, can you give us for anybody who doesn't know this, and as we continue to talk ENFP, IFTJ, and all that, can you just give us a quick breakdown of?
I will do that, absolutely. Okay. It's a little hard to understand the fullness of this, because this one goes deep enough to really be helpful, so it's hard to get it in a nutshell, but I'll do my best. So there's 4 categories that this assessment refers to. The first one is E or I, extroversion or introversion. That has to do with your mental energy. So is your mental energy going more towards the external world? That's when you're extroverting, when you're talking and interacting with people and doing things. Introverting is when you're more inward and you're in thought. Typically you're alone, although I could sit here an introvert, even though I'm around people, I could kind of disengage and just go internal, right? And so those are the two categories there. And like I said before, we extrovert and introvert both throughout the day, but one of them is going to feel like it's charging your mental battery more than the other. That's what your home base is. Okay. And then the second category is how you gather information. We use both sensing and intuition. S or N. Because the I has already been used for introversion, we use N for intuition. Okay, so and sensing is when you're taking in information through your 5 senses, so it's more concrete data. It's what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're concrete data points. And intuition is connecting the dots and gathering the deeper meaning, the bigger picture, the future implications of those concrete data points. Okay, so a lot of times you can hear it in the way people talk. People who prefer sensing, lots of detail, naming things and places. And in fact, we were talking about Mason earlier. He comes to mind. When you talk to him in just about any conversation, you're going to get city, high school, and mascot. I'm telling you. Or maybe even the county that it's in. And then he knows some people from there, and he knows the coaches of the athletic teams and which year they won championships. I mean, talk about data points. I mean, he just boom, boom. Well, his type is he's showing, actually we've had a conversation if he prefers sensing or intuition, but I always try to tell him, like, you walk around with these sensing data points all the time, like so naturally, I think.
Well, if we think about mom and like how she'll leave instructions.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, detail.
When you turn out of the driveway, go left. I'm like, Mom, I know how to get to the main road. I don't need to know how to turn out of the driveway. Yeah.
Or like if you go to their condo and there's the binder of all the instructions on how to do this and all the recommendations for restaurants and things to do and all that stuff. It's just incredibly detailed.
And pictures of the beds, so you know how to make them back with the pillows in just the right place. In fact, that's in my bedroom right now. I'm in my old bedroom that's now redone as a guest bedroom, and Anthony and I moved in, and we're like opening the bedside table drawers. There's a picture of how to make the bed, so he's like looking at it and he's trying to, I'm like, honey, we're going to be here for a year. Don't worry about you don't have to worry about that. We're taking all these pillows and sticking them in the closet. We're not having to worry about the bed.
Oh, poor Anthony.
But see, it's so, I mean, we sit here and laugh, but it's so useful to have people like that in society.
Very true.
Who don't mind all those details. In fact, all 4 of us sitting here prefer intuition, and we are happy to have assistants or other people we can delegate all that detail work to, because it flat wears our brain out.
Yeah. Hello,
right?
Alice.
Yes. Hi, Alice. I have several in my life, Justin and Kate, and I have many wonderful S's in my life who help me out. So
yes. Okay,
so that's the second category, sensing and intuition. Then the third category we already talked about, that's kind of where do you stand when you make a decision, thinking or feeling. Thinking, you're standing outside the decision. So if this was like the decision to be made, you like drew a circle around this, you stand outside of it, you look at it objectively, pros and cons, analyze it. Feeling is when you step inside the circle and you look at the situation as if it's happening to you. And how does it make you feel, and what values is it hitting or contradicting, and how does it affect the people around you? That's feeling. So that's the third category. And the fourth category is judging or perceiving. And this is how you prefer your environment. Okay? So judging doesn't mean you're judgmental. It just means you like to go ahead and make a judgment about something. You like closure. You don't want to leave things open-ended. Perceiving means you like to take things in, perception. So you like to keep bringing in more information, more research, more stimulus, more options, more spontaneous, let things emerge. That type of person typically, not always, tends to be a little more fun, risk-taking, funny, and you can see it in their humor. Actually, sometimes I can type somebody really quickly, and their humor is a big indicator to me.
Oh, wow. Wow.
That they have it, or how they use it?
how they use it. So, for instance, our brother Jay gets his best laughs when fill in the blank.
Like when he quotes a show.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
He is not a P, he's a J, and he's using his memory of what he's heard in those movies. And that's SJ combination, which is the same reason why Autumn is good at Wheel of Fortune. She also has a SJ combination. So sensing and the judging together when you it's one thing to understand each type, then you start learning about the combination. It's so fascinating.
It is.
It is. But when you put sensing and judging together, it's the judging is the closure, and it's bringing the details to closure. It's literally in their mind. They're like creating a filing cabinet, and all the things they've seen and heard and experienced, they're like stored away. Their memory is amazing.
It is amazing.
Yes.
So this happened today.
Okay.
And this is my daughter and your stepdaughter are basketball players.
Yes.
And they're going to try out for a team.
Yep.
For AAU basketball, IGB
basketball.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's a number of tryouts. There's 5 sessions. 4 of them are in Indianapolis, and one of them's in Evansville. And so we just the current season ended. We're gonna switch teams, and so we're looking for a good option for Maddie. And Lenny and Maddie have become friends, and so they kind of want to be on the same team. And so I get today was the day you could sign up for these sessions for evaluations and stuff. So Autumn put it on the calendar to remind her, and then I bet mid-morning today, she, in fact, I know because she texted me and is Maddie a guard?
Yeah.
The other option means she's big.
Right.
Yeah. So she signs up for the one in Evansville. All right, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right. So then I get a call from Anthony. And Anthony's like, hey, I'm thinking about taking Lenny to a number of these sessions. And his point was, the more they see Lenny and Maddie, the better chance they have on getting on a team. And it had not occurred to me that more is better. What occurred to me was, oh, thank God there's one in Evansville. We don't have to go to Indy.
Right.
Oh, right.
So what Autumn had done before I talked to Anthony was she signed up for the one session for $35. Okay. And that was done. That was a task she had, and it was done.
Yeah.
And after I talked to Anthony, I called her and I opened that back up.
Oh, no.
And she was not happy about that.
When I called, she was also trying to give the dog a bath, and the hot water heater wasn't working.
Oh.
So it was a confluence. So to say she wasn't happy is not correct. But I knew after 23 years of marriage, what I was about to do was going to stress her. But I wouldn't have been able to explain it as because she's an SJ and she had just completed a task and she could put that away, and it didn't. And I went and I opened that thing back up. That's what created the stress for her. And so I knew, maybe that's just my in or something. You can tell me. I knew it was about to happen, but I couldn't have explained why. And then the fact that I caught her when she was trying to give the dog a bath
Oh, yeah.
so she did not love the idea.
Right.
And I knew before I called she wouldn't love the idea.
Yeah.
Even though logically, if she would take herself outside the decision and think through it, I bet she would agree that more is better. And so anyway, that was when you.
That's a good example.
I was like, I see what I did there.
Yeah.
Sorry, baby love. I love you.
And that was your intuition that picked up on that pattern. So intuition helps us with pattern recognition. And also I can relate to Autumn that preferring judging. I like my tasks closed too. And so when you think you have it closed and it opens back up, there's that feeling of like that. And it doesn't at all mean like I don't believe in the new task, or I'm sure it just takes 2 seconds. She's like, oh, I get it. So this will be better for Maddie to do, but just the fact that thing on your to-do list is opened again, that's just kind of painful.
There's with Tara, there's been several different times where she had a feeling about somebody, right? About somebody we were involved with or working with, or that where she just didn't have a good feeling or quickly made a judgment about them or their character, where I I'm very much give everyone the benefit of the doubt and give them a chance and think the best out of people. And she's almost always right in the end, like almost always right. But would that be the PJ?
So my understanding of Tara, now I haven't talked to her about this in a while, but is that her personality type is an INTP? The last we talked about it. So I think maybe you have a couple other things going on there. If I had to guess, which it would be better if I could ask her here, but you giving people the benefit of the doubt, that comes from the F largely. And also it comes from the N and the P. So the N, F, and P. Okay, let's break this down for a second. The intuition and perceiving, when you put those two together, it helps you look at the 360 degrees around an issue. In fact, it's difficult for you to stop looking at 360 degrees and narrow down and decide and move forward, right? And so your type is some of the most creative type and prolific in just ideas, because you just have this capacity for discovery and pioneering and exploring. And I know I raised one, and
True.
wow, that could be challenging and awesome all at the same time. Yeah, you're welcome. And so when you take that plus the feeling, so you're putting yourself in someone's shoes and you're like, well, they may have done that for this reason or maybe for this reason. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. And like, well, maybe it was a bad day, or maybe they grew up this way. Maybe their family of origin did it, or maybe the culture they came from. You know, there's all these endless reasons of why, hold on, let's not conclude something negative about them.
Right.
You know, plus you're extroverted and you want to be friends with everybody and be inclusive and connect. And so now, if she's an INTP, plus she's a female, so I do think there's sometimes female-male differences coming in there. I think it's the T, the objective analysis, if that's her type. So she's going to look, she's picking up patterns too, and she can look all the way around an issue, but maybe a little less strapped to the giving people the benefit of the doubt part from an emotional connection standpoint, because it's easier for her to step back and just be objective about what she's seeing.
Yeah.
I think maybe that's where it's coming from.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
But I'd have to ask her. Am I nerding out too much on
it? No,
No,
that's not. I love it. I love it so much.
Okay.
I love it so much. Yeah, this is great. And it's so interesting, and it's like anybody who hears about this, I mean, who doesn't want to learn more once they get it? Other than like Tara's type that doesn't want to be labeled.
Exactly.
Right? Which type is that?
INTP. So typically when I do, typically when I have like a seminar that I do with a group of people, there'll be one in the room, and they will show themselves very quickly. And like, how do we know this is accurate? I read online that this actually has been debunked. And well, how can you know? Because if I'm this way when I was a teenager, and this, all this like skepticism and debate, but actually that's how they learn. They're like, let me look all the way around and let me share my objectives or objections. It shows that they're interested and they're considering it. So I think at first, obviously, when I first was doing this, I was like, please nobody oppose me, especially not in front of a group of people. That's awful, Yeah. But I became more comfortable with just engaging them in conversation and answering those questions. And like type theory would say, this is a inborn predisposition that your type doesn't change, and it's not genetic that we know of. And it's not like if you are introverted and you have two extroverted parents, you're not going to become extroverted over time living in their household. You don't change because of exposure to something. Although nurture does play a part, you're an introvert with two extroverted parents, so you were just put in a lot more extroverted situations. You were put on the spot more, and you were introduced to people, and people came in the home. Okay. But you had to learn skills maybe to cope with that, and skills to use.
Yeah, I will describe myself as a skilled extroverter.
Yes, that's a good way
but
to
I
say
am
it.
faking it.
Yeah.
Now, actually, I'm not completely faking it. That's not the right way to put it. I think in your language, it's just a draining experience for me.
Yes.
I can do it. I think a lot of people would describe me as an extrovert because of the roles they've seen me in. but it's a draining experience. I can only do that for so long. And I was just in Salt Lake City. I was thinking about this when you were describing how extroversion and introversion affects your mental energy. I was in Salt Lake City for instructor training. These are the instructors. They're my friends. I care for these people. They're wonderful people. I enjoy being around them. And on the heels of that, there was chapter officer training. So the officers from all the chapters came to Salt Lake City, and they overlap just a little bit. So we're done with instructor training, and I stayed an extra day to overlap a little bit with chapter officer training. But there was an evening there where the instructors were gone, and all the chapter officer people, who I also know and like, I've got friends there and stuff. But nobody expected, I was just sort of an addition. I didn't have a role to play. I was kind of in the room, but I wasn't engaging. And that evening, when everybody went out to dinner and stuff, nobody thought about me, you know? And I could have easily texted a few people, hey, what are y'all doing tonight? Whatever. And I stayed in my room and watched a stupid movie. I don't even remember what it was. And did nothing, and it was wonderful. You know, like I was done extroverting. You know what I mean? I'd been like 3 straight days, and I was like, ooh, I can get the night off alone. That sounds wonderful.
Right,
you know?
right.
So that's...
I did that. I like, even though I'm extrovert, right? And some would think like a very big extrovert. I'm very like that too. Like if there's sometimes we'll either just Irish goodbye, right? I've Irish goodbye a lot more since being married to Tara, who's Irish and loves an Irish goodbye.
Now that's a new term for me. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, you just slip
out. But I didn't know it was
That's the thing, yeah.
But like for our listeners.
Oh yeah, Irish goodbye is when you leave the party. Gone. Yeah, you're gone. You don't feel the need to say goodbye or take that time to say goodbye.
And you're not just saying that because you married an Irish girl.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the term.
No, I felt that's the term.
Yeah,
that's right.
Okay.
Yeah, Irish goodbye. But like I'm very similar to that, and I've often wondered sometimes if I am as extroverted as I've been labeled. Right?
Yep. Okay, that actually brings us to a very good topic.
Sweet.
And that is stress. How stress affects the expression of your personality type.
Oh.
So everybody has limits. Even extroverts, at some point, they want to pull away, right? But when you're stressed, so I'm not saying you're stressed, I don't know, but I'm stressed. So I can tell you from personal experience.
Way more stress in my life now than when I was younger, for sure.
Yeah, and just being a parent, and you have children, and then you're married, and you're working, and you know, if moving, I know you guys are more settled now, but you moved, and stress obviously taxes us, and so you just have less mental energy. Also, if you're in a time of life, so you're an ENFP, if you're in a time of life where you're really having to lean in on S, you're going to be less extroverted because you're just flat worn out mentally. Or if you're really having to lean in on T and you're an F, typically what I see people doing is, T's having to do a lot of F is very draining, and N's having to do a lot of S is very draining. Maybe I'm saying that because I'm an NT. I'm sure it goes the other direction too.
Yeah, I bet.
Well, I'm an NT, so that's like
both of those.
You almost got
tough.
an amen out of me right there. Yeah,
those are tough. Or if you're a J and you're collaborating with a P and you can't control the environment and you're going off of their environment, that's very difficult. Now, if the J's controlling the environment and the P's along for the ride, it's going to be harder for them, right? So you have to take those things into consideration. I think
This is why it's always better to be the boss.
I think you're clearly extroverted, and you can see it in other ways, not just how often am I needing alone time, but also how do you like to process your thoughts. So extroverts tend to talk things out.
Yeah.
And when you ask them a question, it's like, well, I don't know. Let me think about it. Da, 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 you know,
I'm glad you asked.
Yeah. And they tend to share personal information without being asked. I don't know if you do that. I do that all the time. Hi, Codie. How you doing? It's my first time here. What's your favorite thing on the menu?
Gotten better at it, and not doing as much, or getting more balance.
Yeah. Yes. But introverts, for instance, when I talk to you on the phone, sometimes I'm like, hey, Bo, what's going on? And I'm like, is he on there? Like, oh, now he's talking. You have this pause that if it's like 1 second longer, I would think you're ignoring me or the call dropped. It's right there on the line. I cannot tell you how many times I've looked at the phone thinking you were gone. And then
I'm thinking.
I know, exactly. You're introverting, which is a great thing.
Yeah.
Because typically it's not just, hey, what's going on? It's a legit question of substance. There's this pause that's just over the line of awkward. And then here comes this amazingly processed, well-packaged answer. And I'm like, wow, he came up with all that in just like 3 seconds, you know?
Would have been better at 2 seconds, evidently.
But you took your 3 seconds of silence, you pulled it together, and literally you communicate in like outline form. You're like, well, thesis statement. Now, point number 1.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And then you're like, supporting evidence, point number 2. Supporting evidence, point number 3. And the conclusion.
Yeah. It makes him a good teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's very typical. That communication style is very typical of an NTJ. So I tend to teach and communicate like that also. Yeah. So I'm ENTJ. He's INTJ. So when you're the same on the last 3 letters and it's just the EI different, you actually have the most in common with that other type. The E or I is actually the least descriptive of what you're like.
Oh, wow.
The N and the T and the J
I can see that.
color us even more than the extroversion introversion.
Yeah, I can see that too.
And so then Beamer is also the INTJ. So you're kind of in the middle. You appear to be in the middle. You're more clearly introverted, but you step into extroversion kind of in the middle. I'm more clearly extroverted. Beamer's clearly introverted. So if you had us on a spectrum, we're very similar in what's going on in our head and the way we communicate. But then our extroversion, introversion, we're kind of like on that spectrum.
Yeah. Fascinating.
I have one more thing to say to you about what you said.
Yes.
You have the freedom not to overfunction. So if you're typically exerting your extroversion and your feeling at a certain level and people are used to you like that, and then life gets a little harder and you got to lean into the S and it's draining you and you feel stressed, you can just bring it down.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to, the people will be like, you okay? What's going on?
Right. Yeah.
And you just have to answer that question, but you can.
That's right. Yeah.
But overfunctioning is draining too.
Yeah.
I have often wondered about the comedians.
Yeah.
In this regard, like the Robin Williams, Belushi.
Oh, yeah.
Especially the ones that have OD'd or committed suicide or whatever.
Yeah.
Was it that dynamic that they felt like they had to be on all the time that finally just completely drained them? Like, I've wondered about the people that have to be on all the time. Like, that's what they're known for. That's what people expect of them. They probably feel all kinds of pressure to be that all the time.
Jim Carrey has talked about that a lot. And so it's like anybody who talks about Robin Williams or him on set, he was always on, he was always going, and also majorly depressed, especially after going through, he was a drug addict for a long time and got sober. But after that, I don't know if it was like specifically cocaine or whatever it was that altered his brain, because he did so much of it that beyond that he just couldn't get out of it, and ended up offing himself, which is very sad. But there are so many comedians that are depressed, like a lot of them. It's almost like the joke is you have to be depressed or have had a awful childhood to be a comedian. That is what is said, and that's it's not true in every case. It's a stereotype, but Jim Carrey talks about it a lot, because Jim Carrey has really come to a place, a spiritual awakening in himself of seeing things for seeing things for what they are beyond where we are, beyond the reality that we see. And he talks about that a lot. But were you asking specifically with like extroverted introversion?
Well, as you were describing, like, how'd you say it? The
I
freedom
call it
to
over-functioning.
Yeah.
Where you can push yourself
It's
to
like
be
you're
who you
redlining.
are when you're full of energy, but when you're not full of energy and you're like, oh, everybody's expecting me to be the life of the party or to initiate conversation or keep the conversation going or to whatever.
Right.
You keep pushing yourself when really you're just kind of done. You need to tap out. You
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah. And and what I've gotten good at is because having the parents we have, they want to show us off all the time.
Yeah.
You know, when friends come, when their friends come and they're like, oh, dude, you know, all growing up in high school, it's like, do that monologue, do that 12-minute monologue that makes your back hurt for a week where you're sweating for our friends. You know,
Yes.
and I would, and I did. And I don't regret it either. I also got something out of it, which was, you know, people looking at me like, whoa, that was amazing. You know, that was a
Sure.
But,
Well, look,
yeah.
even today, like, I was excited about showing our sister off to our audience.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Like, I felt the same way. Like, I get that a little bit now,
I do too.
you know,
Yeah.
And as
a
parents,
parent.
and we get it too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not once ever liked being put on the spot.
Yeah.
Right. I neither.
In any, I like to prepare.
Yeah,
and
you
I
do.
have a lot of confidence when I'm prepared.
Right.
And I have almost none when I'm not.
Yeah.
And so I've never really enjoyed the whole.
Actually noticed at, I think it was Thanksgiving, we were going, you know, we're in the living room and we're going around the circle saying what we're thankful for. And I'm happy to share. I'm extroverted and I had things I was thankful for, especially because, you know, newly engaged at the time and all that. And then all my kids are extroverted, all 4 of them.
Wow.
Which is actually really unusual that every single one of the children would be. And I think most of them shared. Maybe not Lucy. Maybe 3 of y'all shared. And then I think mom or dad asked one of your kids to share. And you stepped right in. You're like, we're all very thankful. But I forget how you said it. But you're like, we're all very thankful. But you said it so gracefully. Do you remember?
I don't remember what I said. I do remember that dynamic now because I was like, oh, no.
Yeah, you felt it coming.
Because
You're like, we're not going to share, but we're very
completely
thankful.
introverted family.
Yes. Yeah, all of you.
Like all of us. And so.
And whatever you said was just, it was ready to go. It was very graceful. And Anthony, my new husband, is introverted. And he was like, afterwards, he was like, that was awesome. I'm using that line. That was perfect. I love what Bo says, you know? And he just grabbed it. Yeah. I think you just were like, you know, we don't really like sharing in front of the group, but we're all very thankful. And you just kind of spoke for the whole family and just let them all off the hook, you know, something like that.
Yeah, that's really great. Yeah, that's really great. And that's another thing that, like, bringing these personality types in and understanding that more, especially in the family that we have, where it's like we all got to share. Everybody's got to say something or share. Growing up, especially, that really made Beamer feel a fish out of water. You know, or like you can begin to feel like there's something wrong with you if you don't fall into a few certain categories.
Right.
And I think that was a huge gift.
Kind of along those lines, could you speak to the reality that regardless of what type you are, it's not good or bad. It's just it's immoral. Moral.
Right. Outside of it's
who you are, and it's
neutral,
and it's good. Yeah. Neutral is a good way to say it. Like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no preferred types. So I can't walk around being like, I'm an ENTJ. You know, there's no preferred types. Like, every type is needed in society. There's nothing wrong or right about being extroverted or introverted. In fact, we all do both. But your home base is...
Doesn't matter if you're E or I.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Oh,
That's Michael
black
Jackson.
or white.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
S-O-J. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So he was probably an ISFP, but anyway.
I love that. I love when you do that. I do.
Which is called the artist. So there's a lot of performers. There's a lot of performers who are introverted that you'd be surprised about.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But when you start to look at society, you see the wonderful contribution of all 16 types. So I do talk about this in my trainings. Like, I really want people to be confident with who they are. Some people feel bad about a certain part of their personality type that they feel like is lesser than, and it's typically comes from being different than their family of origin in that way, or the culture at work or whatever. But I do, when I talk to parents about this, I do let them know, like, if as you're learning your kids' personality types, be aware if everybody in the family is introverted and then only one is extroverted. That person's going to feel a little bit of oddball. Or if everybody's a P and one's the J, you know, or whatever is the one person and they're the only one that way, be mindful that they understand there's nothing wrong with that. You just happen to be in a family where everybody's your opposite. And you know what? Thank you for bringing variety to us, you know, and embracing that.
Right.
So if that's the case, then if you take this to the workplace, though, certain jobs are going to attract, almost said require, but that's not necessarily but they're going to attract certain types, or certain types are going to do certain jobs naturally.
Absolutely.
Better. Ben is 18, my son, and he's going into a senior high school, and he's not sure what to do after. So we want him to take the assessment so he can start to understand better what he might naturally be well suited for.
Yep.
You know, and even like in hiring decisions, you know, we had, you know, our church has used you a number of times to try to, all right, like we've got this position to hire for, what could be a good type for that role? You know, how can commercial real estate professionals who might be in a sales job, you know, maybe they're brokers, or maybe they're an analyst, or there's all kinds of different roles. I can see every type having success in commercial real estate, but not necessarily in every role.
Right.
And when I was in a role as a broker, as an introvert, like it was, every day was somewhat draining for me. I love to problem solve. I love to figure things out, but I didn't necessarily want to do that in a group of people talking about it the whole time. You know, so like, let me go in my office and figure this out. And then if you'll just do it, I say, it'll work out really well for you, you know? And so my frustration was when I needed to be with people all the time, which is a great way to develop relationships and lifelong clients, is to be with them. So that's not a supernatural thing for me. And then when they don't agree with my analysis or my advice, because in the role of a broker, I'm not the one with my name on the paper. Like, I'm not signing the contract. I'm just advising. And when I couldn't get people to do what I knew was the right thing for them to do, whether I was right or not, but I was sure regardless, that was a very frustrating thing. So there were certain parts of when I was in the role of a broker, incredibly frustrating. But at the same time, there were certain parts where I loved it. Like when we could solve the puzzle and it did work out and they did take my advice. And like, that was incredibly satisfying because I'd accomplished something and I had seen the path forward, you know, and that stuff I really, really enjoyed. But overall, I don't know that I was a great fit as an INTJ to being a commercial real estate broker.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is why you moved out of that position.
And I still do a little bit of it, but yeah.
It sounded like you were starting with a question, or you were going to have a question in there.
Yeah, and then I just kept talking.
Yeah.
No, I get it. I have quite a few things to say about that, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Yeah.
I'm like processing my outline right here. Okay, I got to put some disclaimers on there to begin with. So, as a Myers-Briggs practitioner, is very important that I say that you're not to hire someone based on their type or not hire someone based on their type, because all types can do all things. So when I was helping...
all types matter.
That's right. So when I was helping OCC with hiring, I wasn't necessarily looking for a certain type for them, but what I would do is I would assess the candidates, and then I would explain to them, this is this person's person. Like, I would meet the candidate, and we would do an assessment, and I would get to know them, and I would understand kind of their preferred working environment, their communication style, their decision-making processes. Like, they were integrated, like we're talking about it. They're aware. Like, I'm understanding you. And I also had already done the assessment for the leadership team at the church. So I was able to kind of broker and go, hey, the team you're about to walk into has number 1 and number 2 guy are both introverted. Okay, so this is what you can expect in the type of interaction you're getting from them. But one's T and one's F. So you're going to have more of the personable feel from one, and the other one's going to kind of give blank stare. But don't feel bad. He does that to everybody, and he loves everybody, but he's just analytical, introverted dude. Okay, he spends a lot of time studying. He gets up at the pulpit and delivers awesome sermons, and that's one of his main roles at the church. He's a good fit for what he does. But so you understand, so I'm helping them understand, then I'm helping them understand who this person is. And then they can decide, this is the role you're looking for. How do you feel about this type of person filling that role? And then they decided. Does that make sense? So I had to kind of like be careful. I wasn't like, oh, you're looking for an ESFP. Let me go find one. You can't really go, you can't do it like that. So, and, okay, so that's one thing to say. But you're really hitting on some important things. One thing I love about what you said is just your self-awareness. So being aware, there's parts of what I do that really fuels me and works well for me, but then there's parts that were kind of draining. So it is important to understand your preferred working environment. You are an independent worker. You don't really like collaborations very much. Or maybe collaborations go well with 1 or 2 certain personality types you work well with, but definitely not these others. So you can kind of learn that about yourself and help yourself not get into those situations where you feel stuck and you're like, this is not good, Also to understand about your communication style and understand the communication style of the people you're working with and what your job requires. So some jobs require you go slow, you're giving lots of details, okay, or other jobs require high-level, abstract concepts, big picture thinking. We're thinking out future. Okay, that's going to be much more intuition and thinking. But if you're more of like a customer service type person, you're on the ground attending to someone's needs, it's S and F, sensing and feeling. Okay, so there's all kinds of jobs that really go great with sensing and feeling. One is a teacher. I mean, just think about how much communication and interpersonal. Teacher on the lower grade levels, not so much a professor in college, although there's some wonderful SF professors in college, but definitely younger kids in grade school and stuff like that, also nurses. But also I've seen that some of the most personable realtors have that, like mom. Right? So they love to not just help you with what you're looking for, but they love to network and resource you with any need that may come up in the conversation, which can be very bonding for loyalty between client and realtor or broker, right? And so some people thrive with that approach. Other people thrive with like, I'm giving you, here's the layout, I analyzed it, here's the main details, here's the thesis, I did the analysis for you. And some people love that. Like, don't drain me with all the people energy and the connecting, just give me the bottom line, I'll process it and get back to you. And then so you kind of have to know who you're dealing with as well. So the combination of the 2 letters in the middle, S and F, or S and T, N and F, N and T, that really colors what kind of work you like doing and communication style and decision-making style. The outside letters have to do more with your environment. So for you, preferring introversion and judging, you like to do things internally and you like there to be closure. So you want to work independently. You do your analysis, you present it, you want it to be accepted and executed. You're like, that was satisfying, But for you, extroversion and perceiving, those are the two letters that stir up the environment the most. So you're extroverted and perceiving. It's like you open the environment and create lots of fun and energy, right? So you want a working environment where you can do that, and that's appreciated, and people want you to do that. There's lots of working environments people don't want you to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that would be frustrating for you, right?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
But then the NF, your two middle letters, when you combine big picture with the feeling connection, you want to see the potential of people. So you want to make a difference in the lives of people in their future. Mm-hmm. So if you can stir up the environment and make a difference for people at the same time, win-win-win for ENFP.
Yeah.
But for you, you want to solve complicated problems in an independent work environment with people who are going to listen and take your advice.
Yeah.
Win-win-win for an INTJ, right?
Yeah,
Big
baby.
smiles.
Yeah.
Like when we talked to your son, when we talked to Ben about what he might be interested in, I'll break it down. That's one way I'll break it down. Let's look at what the inside letter combination is telling us about your communication style. And then the outside letters, what that's telling us about your preferred working environment.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this would have been a better question at the beginning of the episode, but I'm going to ask you this now anyway. Like, how'd you learn all this?
I told about my friend on Facebook who, just posted it on there, and I took it and read about myself. But then Corey Smith, a good friend of ours, we would vacation, Brad and I would vacation every year with Corey and Janet.
Listen to Codie giving all these details.
Yeah.
He was in seminary at the time, and he was taking a class about how a church takes on the personality of the pastor. And that's actually true for any organization or family. The unit takes on the personality of the leaders. So there's actually some organizations out there that will go to churches and they will assess the staff team and maybe the 50 most influential people, leaders of like a big mega church or whatever, and understand that they will give the church a personality type. And it's super accurate on how it contributes and serves to the kingdom and does ministry and what you can expect when you walk in, but it also helps you understand your weaknesses and some things you could fill in. And maybe when you're hiring, we're weak in this, let's hire people who are strong in that, right? Anyway, so he was taking a class on it. So, we were just talking about it. And eventually, Brad just said to me, you need to get certified. Like, you were talking to everybody about this. Like, let's just make this official. If you want to make a business out of it, I'm supportive, whatever. So I had 3 children, and I was very excited to go do this. I kind of found like I found my thing,
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
I got my degree in math and didn't do much with that except I had a math tutoring company for a while. But strangely enough, the mental function, what my brain does when I learn these details about people and then I connect the dots to help understand what their personality is and then hear about their life and help them see, okay, this knowledge can be so freeing to you and empowering to you if you know these things. It's a puzzle. It's the same mental function I had in my geometry proofs class.
Wow.
I'm not even kidding. Yes.
Wow.
Math with shapes. And now this with people, same mental function. So when I came across this, my brain just came alive and I loved it. And I started talking to people about it. And it was so life-changing for so many people in so many different ways. Like I mentioned earlier about the INTPs at the seminars, the ones who would debate and question and be skeptical. Every time they were won over by the end of it, and they would be the last one in the room, standing there asking me questions, talking about it, and sometimes they would be like, oh, this explains so much.
Uh-huh.
They'd be like, even one of them was like, I need to apologize to my staff. And he went and apologized to his staff, and they reordered the company, and it made some major changes, moved his office from being out in the middle of the open. It was, there's been some major changes that have come when people learn I have been overextending or in a spot that didn't fit me well. And it's really cool to see. It's really cool to see. So once I got certified, you can just buy all these material, and I just read it. And everything I read, I apply it to myself, to my marriage, to my kids. Oh my gosh, it's helped me so much with parenting. And it's just my filter for pretty much everything in life. And now that I lead my own company, I use it with my employees all the time. I don't mean hey guys, we're having a training. No, as I'm talking to them, I just use the information. It's just in my processing system. Even today, Yeah. On the way here, Gunner's like, you need to talk about this. This just happened. On the way here, I was talking with an employee and about, hey, when's this going to happen kind of conversation. And he was like, these are the steps I need to do to learn it. Very respectful. He's a ISTJ. And I understand ISTJ's learning style typically is I want to learn independently from a manual on how to do it before I actually go do it in front of people. You can, compare that to like maybe an ESFP or ESTP, take Dad, for instance. He's not sitting down reading a manual. He's going to jump right in that truck and figure out how to deliver the container in front of everybody and, messed up. I'm going to do it, and just get his hands on it and he'll figure it out and be like, figured it out, and so that would be very invigorating for Dad to figure out something on the spot as he's going. Very stressful for other personality types to do that. They want to privately figure it out and learn it on their own and then come back around and do it. Well, I'm that way too. I can totally respect that. So I was picking up what he was saying. And so I just text back and said, I respect your learning style. I also am like that. And in other words, no pressure. Do what you need to do to learn it the way you feel comfortable. Some people just jump in and figure it out as they go. I realize that's not you, and that's totally fine. And he hearted it immediately, you know? And so I really like...
And then you responded back with, but I need you to learn this by tomorrow at noon. Like, do your thing your way, but there's a deadline.
Yeah. He is a very driven individual. That part didn't even need to be said.
Yeah.
So
I don't have a clue you're talking about. I wouldn't really say that.
I know.
I was just trying to say something funny.
That was a good joke. Good joke, Bo.
Thank you.
Good joke. Good job.
Yeah. So it makes me super happy to make my employees, like, I don't know why it makes me emotional, but it's my favorite part of leading a company. It's my team. And to for them to love their workplace because they're seen and heard for who they are and they're put in a spot where they can thrive. It makes me so happy.
Yeah.
So not super passionate to be a business person. It's kind of by default. The Lord's put this in my lap, but I'm being responsible for it. But I love that part of leading people.
We've talked a bit about business, right? How this can be applied in your company. We talked about it through church a little bit. Can you talk about it a little bit with a little bit more as it comes to parenting?
Yeah. Yep. I'll probably cry some more.
Go for it.
Do we have tissues?
Yeah, I was seeing if we got tissues.
Yeah. No, you're fine.
Give you some bourbon.
I've cried so much in the past couple years. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't need tissues. It's fine.
Okay.
Yes. So parenting. Wow. I mean, I could start by saying I have 4 kids. They're all different types. They do happen to all be extroverted. It's easier to figure out your kid's type when they're extroverted because they're just giving you more external clues. Right? Mm-hmm. So I think it was it was quick for me to pick up on it. People are always curious about their kids' personality types, and they'll give me, observations. Mm-hmm. And in fact, one family had me, the INTP that I was talking about, that was like, I need to apologize to my staff and make changes. He then had me come to his home and observe all of his kids.
Wow.
I think they have 7, maybe.
Whoa.
For like a whole afternoon. And he brought his wife to one of my marriage seminars, and then they had me come, and I did the whole family, and I typed up this whole thing, each child and their type. I mean, I did the best I could in one afternoon of observations and talking to the parents. I mean, how can you exactly know the kids' types? Sure. They need to grow up and kind of confirm it themselves. But then we went to their house for dinner a few months ago, and it had been probably, I don't know, 6 years since I typed all that up. And they I can't remember if they brought it out or they told me, they're like, we've gone by this. And I think most of the kids' types were accurate. I don't know if all of them were, and the kids knew their types and they used it in their parent. I was like, well, I was doing the best I could with an afternoon observation. I mean, they went by it, and it just gave them great clues. Okay, it gives you clues on lots of things. It gives you clues on your child's heart behind their behavior. Because it's one thing to parent a child's behavior. That's what's on the surface. But behind the behavior is the heart, the motive. So if you're actually trying to help shape a child, you got to get to the heart behind why they did that. Okay? So your daughter gets a new toy, and then the other daughter comes up when she's not looking and grabs it and breaks it. Okay, why? Well, we could probably guess as adults, jealousy maybe, but you have to like help your kids see okay, so I'm getting off on parenting stuff, but the heart behind stuff is what you have to address to help that child understand why not to do the behavior, So you parent both, the behavior and the heart behind it. But with personality type, it gives me lots of clues on, number one, how to even get the child to open up. Maybe gives me a clue on what the heart behind it may have been. Gives me a clue on how to expect their expression of like wanting to reconcile with the sibling, the other sibling's willingness to receive it. All that's affected by personality type. Also, what might fill the cup of my child, like if I'm wanting to have meaningful quality time with them. And some of that goes into love languages. Mm-hmm. You can see probably some pattern crossover between, an INTJ. If there were like 10 INTJs in here, would you guys have similar love languages? Maybe.
Likely,
maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting, right? But what they would enjoy doing. So Gunnar, when he was younger, because he's an ENFP and he loves to explore, I think maybe it was wintertime and they're just... I don't know. I remember feeling like I was limited on what I could do to go have fun. We all hopped in the car, and I was like, Gunnar, just tell me where to go. If you say straight, I'll go straight. You say left, I'll go left. If you say right, I'll go right. And I let him explore through me. Obviously, he couldn't drive, but he just told me where to go. And we just explored the city, and he just,
That's what I was wondering. That seems like that would be a great way to fill the cup of an ENFP.
Uh-huh.
It's just like, especially a kid, it's like, tell me where to go.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
And it could, another type could really enjoy that too. A child who likes to have control. So maybe they're not as
she would love that. Yeah.
Maybe they're not as interested in exploring as they are being able to have the power of saying what to do and it gets done. So there may be a different reason why they like it.
Yeah, that's interesting because that is Una. And I don't think Una is an ENFP at all. She's very introverted, very internal. I remember we got her this Frozen dress, and we put it on her. She's about 2 or 3 at the time. She looks in the mirror and sees it, and she's just quiet, like no look on her face. I was like, does she hate this? Does she not like? And she loved it.
Oh, interesting.
She loved it, and we've noticed since that little light bulb in my head is she doesn't kind of like Beamer in a way, like he doesn't.
Yes.
Outwardly be like, oh, this is awesome. But when she really likes something, she almost does the opposite. Just kind of closes up. Yeah. Which is, Birdie, on the other hand, is very, in for the ride, in for the fun.
She's more expressive with it.
Right.
Now, one thing that could be happening there is if she's possibly a T and she's being filled up full of emotion, that feels uncomfortable to a T.
Ah.
Yeah.
I will validate that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Me too. It can feel almost embarrassing. Uncomfortable.
That's what it seems like.
Uncomfortable at the least, but maybe even embarrassing.
That's what it seems like.
When you kind of want to hide.
Yeah, when I throw praise upon her, right? When I'm really proud of her, I just, she does something I just think was an awesome choice, an awesome thing. Mm-hmm. But typically, it almost seems embarrassing to her when she, Yeah.
So you could even say it. You could get good eye contact and say it with less energy.
Yeah.
And she may still receive it the same amount.
Yeah.
And it feel a little more comfortable to her. Or she might be used to you and be like, "What's wrong, Dad? How come you're not that excited?"
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Or as she gets older, written form of praise can be a lot more comfortable for introverts to receive. Not just introverts. T's.
Yeah.
There's a spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's another spectrum. Here's another category. The first and the third letter. So first letter is E or I, and the third letter is T or F. So your combinations are I and T, which is, so I'm about to explain to you the spectrum of interpersonal warmth.
Okay.
So on one end, you have Bo.
Frigid.
Introversion and thinking. So he's internal and he stepped out of the situation. So two steps
Poker face.
back. Yeah, exactly. On the other end of the spectrum, you have Timmy, extroverted, so stepping in and feeling. 2 steps in, 2 steps back, 2 steps in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So now I would be somewhere in the middle because I prefer extroversion and thinking. So, but I think because I was raised by mom who was very expressive, EF, I'm a little bit on the spectrum. I'm a little bit closer to you, Timmy, to the F. You probably can see it with the hand motions, the facial expressions, and inflection of my voice, and I share personal information about, and so I'm a little bit closer to you, but not quite where you are. And then someone who prefers introversion and feeling, like Autumn, let's say, she's warmer than you, but she's still going to be on that end because of the introversion, right? So this is the interpersonal warmth spectrum. Sometimes when I do trainings, I have people stand in a line on the spectrum. And I would go through and I would greet them, and the people on the end, I'm like, I mean, literally, like their comfortable greeting is like, hi. They like maybe shake their hand. All the way to this end, they're like, hey, and they're not just a hug, but they're a hug and a squeeze and a grip. And they just can't even get it all out in like one hug, Yeah. And then, kind of in the middle. It's just to kind of demonstrate, like even in interpersonal warmth, you can see the personality trait in that. My husband, Anthony, he's ISFP. Oh, that's another fun topic. We are completely opposites in all 4 categories. I never thought I would do that, but
wow.
I'll comment on that in a second. But he said if he would have met me in high school, he's like, you like talking about the interpersonal warmth, like you would have come off too strong for me. I would have been like, no thanks. He's like a little bit, he'd be kind of like where Autumn's at. Not, the warmth because of the F, but more of the contained is a good word. More of the contained approach to greeting people.
Yeah, I think we're going to have a lot of Thanksgivings and Christmases in the future with me and Anthony in the corner, hanging out, really enjoying watching the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He really enjoys talking to you. He says it a lot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he likes watching you. He loves it. And we were looking at old pictures. He's like, which one's Timmy? And he's like, oh, yeah, there's the goofy grin. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm sure he enjoys talking to you, too. I didn't mean to sound like that.
Oh, no. I did. Yeah. No.
He thinks you're hilarious.
Yeah. I love it.
What are some clues we can look at in our kids that might give us a feel for what their type is? Mm-hmm. Like, what are some things we could look for?
I do like to look for that interpersonal warmth spectrum that I just talked about. Because some people are very clear, one end or the other. And you don't want to just look at, oh, today they had a moment where they're like this. No, like follow them as if you had like a video camera perspective. Like, what's their typical pattern? Not like their off day, they acted like this, but their typical pattern. If they're very interpersonally warm, ongoingly, on a regular basis, in most every situation, you almost already know E and F. You're halfway there with their type. Okay?
Wow.
Or if they're quite contained, reserved, it comes across colder, but I don't mean that in a rude way, but just contained. Okay? Yeah. Reserved, ongoingly, always. In most situations, not always, but in most situations, you might be like, well, but they're not with me. Okay, so their mom or their dad or their one best friend, their sister, if they are different with just that small inner circle, that's not home base. Like, tell me what they're like in the breadth of situations, Then I and T. Okay, now if they're somewhere in the middle, now we need to think it through a little bit more on each category. So for extroversion and introversion, I do like to notice, are they processing their thoughts out loud? My extroverted kids, sometimes one of them, he's like talking to himself about what he's doing as he's doing it. I mean, he's helping himself do his task by talking it out loud. Yeah. Birdie. And
no, I do that in my head. I just don't say it out loud.
But you do it in your head, okay?
But I'm like calling a play-by-play as I'm working and stuff.
Yeah,
for sure.
So you see things there, and even like
she said, it was neutral, man.
Not to me.
And how long before they answer? That's a piece of information that I gather, when I ask someone a question. Not something they already know, but something they have to think about it for a second, So where are they processing their thoughts, out loud or internally? So that's the first one. With sensing and intuition, that's the most difficult category to tell in a child, because intuition develops, that part in the brain develops later, is my understanding. So all kids take information in through their senses, largely just that. But intuition typically shows itself with like, wow, that was very insightful, or you made that connection, or, I used to have these examples when you're little. I tell people, like, we're putting together, something about this and this and this, 3 different things. Maybe something you had learned, you're looking at the globe, and you had looked at a body of water, and then you had learned something about this animal, and then you saw something else over here about a storm or something, and then you're like, Mom, and you had put those pieces of information together to create a theory, and you're asking about it. When a child keeps doing that over and over, they're using their intuition. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so for a child to do that is normal. We should all be using our intuition. But when they're doing it and doing it and doing it, and their mind just keeps, you're like, oh, wow, this child prefers intuition. You're noticing that. Now, sensing, when I see someone who prefers sensing, they typically are firing really strong on 2 or 3 of their senses. So you may see it in musical ability, or basically a strong affinity for or against the senses. So like Lucy, for instance, she's prefers sensing and her textures. Now, all kids typically like blankets and stuff like this, but ongoingly, textures were a big deal to her, but also a strong dislike of fruit. It just overwhelmed her taste buds.
Wow.
Fruit. She would eat broccoli, could not handle fruit. And then musical ability, and then ability to draw. So you start to see some strong preference for or against, or some of the artistic abilities with the senses, or the child just loves music and they come alive to me. That starts to shape, okay, I'm seeing lots of sensing happening here. I won't go into all this, so it's a little deep, but another form of sensing that you could see is mechanical ability. So Shep can take things apart and put them together, and he walks around with janitor keys.
Yeah.
Hooked to his hands, right now today, walking around, ching, 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 because he loves the keys, and he locks himself out of his door on purpose and then sees what he can find to unlock. He just loves mechanical in his hands. Yeah. In fact, he actually had surgery on his thumb. He had trigger thumb, and the doctor was like, I've only done the surgery on older people who've been factory workers their whole life. Well, I had gotten him these little transformer letters for Christmas. He was 3, and every day for hours he was transforming A, B, C, D, the alphabet into these little robots, transformers, for hours for several months, and his thumb got stuck. A factory worker who used their hand every day.
Whoa.
And just his mechanical sense has been really high, and his athleticism. I see multiple things with Shep. Sure enough, S. And then with the memory on the details, like we were talking about with Jay and Autumn, and also with Brody. So you could see it in that as well. So it's kind of what's their standout feature over time. Give them a chance to develop both the S and N part of their brain, because clearly you're an N, but you have musical ability. So you don't want to be like, my child's musical, they're an S. Take in more observations than just that. Then the T and the F is a little bit easier to tell. T's typically just have sharper edges in the way they communicate, and they tend to offend people a little bit more in the way they say things. Tends to be a little more direct. They're not trying to be rude, but it's no, I don't want that. It's okay, say, oh, no, thank you, and you're always kind of telling them to also think about other people's feelings, and
I'm trying to figure out if she's talking about me specifically or T's in general.
T's in general, yeah.
T's in general.
I know that's true, but that sounded like she was talking to.
Yeah. Well, I think you're projecting, yeah.
I'm probably projecting.
Yeah, but it's I don't even mean that as a joke.
Yeah.
It's crazy what we identify with when someone else is talking. Well, of course, you all are super close in age, brother, sister. But, as she was talking about that, I was thinking about Una. She's talking about Una.
It can be a little prickly. The T's can be.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
I love a prickly tea.
Apparently you do, because you chose one.
I really do. That was one of the things I really did love about Tara. Like, it's just, it is, you're getting what they're giving you.
Yeah.
Right? There's not, and that's it. It can be a bit blunt sometimes, but
you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, you don't have to wonder.
Yes.
You don't have to wonder. It's true, and it might hurt your feelings, but it's good to get your feelings hurt sometimes, you know, and get your ego in check. And dealing with a prickly tea can force you to look in the mirror sometimes, you know, because they won't sugarcoat, you know, or there's often times where there's no sugarcoating. This is it. This is what I feel. This is what I see.
Autumn is a mysterious F.
Oh.
So she's been a puzzle and a challenge to me since the day I met her. And it's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that really drew me to her was, like, she's a puzzle to solve, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that before, but, like, she is not a prickly tea.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to know what she's really thinking, you got to pursue it.
Right. Yeah.
Which I really enjoy.
Oh,
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
awesome.
Like,
That's great.
We're coming up with new names for the categories.
I like
Yeah,
it.
prickly
Prickly
tea.
tea.
Yeah, prickly
You're
tea.
prickly
Yeah.
or at least in our dynamic.
Yeah.
I think what am I? Let's hear Gunnar on this.
Here, we throw that to.
Speak freely.
I think you might be the unpredictable T. Mm-hmm. You're the unpredictable T. Even like, never mind, cut that out.
No.
Cut out when I said even like, because I don't want to continue with that example.
Even like last night when I got mad at you.
I was thinking earlier today.
Oh.
When we were on the phone and you're like...
Yep. Last night and earlier.
Yeah, and you guys have fun at the house, and Lucy's going to bake some stuff, and then Lucy asked to go get sandwiches.
And then I lost it.
And you lost it.
That's because I had already told Gunnar the plan was
No,
not
you
to get
told me-
sandwiches and to eat Costco food that I
You
had
told me
already ordered and
tacos.
would be delivered.
You told me
Oh.
tacos were coming, but when I got there, there was no tacos, and then you told me they weren't going to be there for 2 more hours. Then we asked for sandwiches.
Well, you didn't understand what time it was. But,
It was 11-something, and you said 1-something.
okay.
All right, so tell us what's going on there. or
I'll tell you what's going on. I'm living in a current season of tons of S and lots of stress because I feel like I'm living the life of 2 people with more responsibility on me than I want, and I'm working hard to get out of it. And I have a great team and lots of help, and I'm getting there. Okay, so but I lose my patience really quick. And sometimes when I'm overwhelmed with the sensing details. So today, I mean, literally, I was like running a company and getting all the kids situated with their new schools and setting up their extracurricular activities. And I'm hosting all my staff for staff training this week. And so I was meal planning for that event. And we're having family dinner tonight, and then Birdie just got invited to open gym. I mean, it's
and let's pull you
like
in here
20.
and have a podcast.
Yeah, it's like 20 things at once. This is
Right.
actually the easiest part of my day.
Yeah, I hope
you.
I hope this actually is good.
No, I love
Yeah,
this. This
yeah.
is good.
Yeah, I know you love to talk about this, but like just bringing that, if you don't mind talking about it for a minute. I know we're running out of time here, but it's a very, very high stress time for you, right? For anybody that's going through high stress time or is feeling their bandwidth is super low or their patience is super low, does, in your experience or what you know about this, cutting things out of your life, or saying, for me, I've tended to say yes to too much, and then I get overloaded, and I've really gotten good at saying no, which makes it a lot simpler because I only got a few things I need to do. Or if I'm in a position where I don't really want to be in that position, or I don't thrive, or it doesn't make me come alive, and then finding where I am, again, like transitioning into a place where, okay, I know I don't want to do this, and after giving a good college try or whatever, but so what would be your advice to somebody that is in your similar position of you've got a lot going on?
Yeah.
What would be your advice to somebody in that position?
Yeah, I would say one thing I read in a book that stuck with me is the phrase "mind your limits." Be mindful of your limits, and be respectful of them for your own sake. So. My situation, I'm not exactly in it by choice, so for listening audience, my first husband died of brain cancer and was running our company. And I was doing this personality training on the side, but mostly raising my 4 kids was my main gig. And but now I'm doing the kids and the company, which I was never really a part of before, other than just being, listening to my husband at the end of the day talk about things. And so my first advice is don't put yourself in that situation, which is why I felt like I needed to explain myself right now, because I didn't exactly choose to put myself in that situation. But my other advice is figure out, like you're saying, figure out your sweet spot, figure out what role you play in that. So I'm learning, like, my personality type, actually, then each type has a nickname, and like yours is called a scientist, mine's called the CEO. I think yours is called the certain sites name them differently. Do you remember? I think it's like the advocate. Is it the advocate, or no? Like the, what is it?
Captain Wildchild.
Oh, Captain Wildchild.
Captain Wildchild.
It's not the advocate. It's,
it's
like the affirmer, like I can't remember, but like understanding like your best contribution to the team, get yourself there. And then, so for me, actually being a leader is very suitable for me, but being thrown into something that I'm responsible for that's very large, and I don't have previous training in, I don't like that. Like my learning style, like I was commenting earlier, like let me go read the manual and take a class and get my A+ on it, and then I would like to step in, I don't want to be thrown in and learn it as I go. Like that is where the stress is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So just feeling blind to exactly all the pieces and the full scope of what I'm responsible for. Like, I don't like feeling irresponsible or incompetent or doing that in front of people. So I've just had to learn how to say, ask for help. So I'm sorry, I don't really know what you just said. Could you explain that? And I've said that to, my accountant, my bookkeeper, my attorney, like all our vendors, like, okay, I'm new here. I didn't really understand. Could you, I've cried in front of most of those people, which I don't very often anymore, which is progress. But but I would say mind your limits. I mean, you have to start by respecting yourself enough to be like, I want to be a healthy human who enjoys life. And, the people around me want me to be healthy too. So that's number one. Then understand about yourself. Okay, what is your best contribution? And what does make you come alive, like you were saying? Understanding your Myers-Briggs type could definitely be a part in that journey. Getting some counseling or a coach or a mentor, asking people like, hey, what do you see as my best contribution here? I'm learning to mind my own limits. What are you seeing? Where am I hitting my limits where I'm no longer functioning well? And a lot of times when we're doing that and we're stressed, we over-function in the thing we're good at. Mm-hmm. But that also can be detrimental and annoying to people when you over-function. So for me, I can be a good leader or I can be really bossy.
Yeah.
Sorry for being really bossy and losing my patience with you today.
I was going to say that I mean, before I get upset when you got upset with me, but even lately I've started to realize that it's not you're so much mad at me, but you just have a lot on your plate, and I don't mind it when you yell at me. Really.
No.
Lucy does, but I don't. And I know you have a lot to deal with, so don't feel too bad. And also, I was being kind of dumb anyway.
No, yeah. You're fine.
I was just.
It was a simple mistake.
Hangry.
Yeah.
You were hangry.
Yeah.
It was a simple thing. Miscommunication.
I tell you what, if the word hangry was something that existed 10 years ago, the divorce rate would be way lower than it is now.
Yeah.
I very much believe that. Yeah. If people just understood hangry.
Thank you for saying that, though. I appreciate that. And that's the other thing I would say is you need to let people know when you're overstretched and overextended and you're overfunctioning and you're hitting your limits. You need to let the people around you know. Maybe even your employer, your coworkers, your spouse, your kids. Like, I've let my kids know. I've explained to them, this is why I'm struggling. And they get it. They don't like it, but they get it, and they're understanding towards me. And they know their personality types too. And they know in times when they're overstressed. So there's empathy. And one thing we always say in our family is, we may not always get along, but we can recover. That's one thing I think we do a good job at, and we've all been faithful to, is we can recover, and so own it and apologize and say, I've got myself in a situation I'm in over my head. I'm going to rethink this, and I need to make some changes. Do I have your support?
Yeah.
Okay, great. You give me some feedback. What are you seeing? You learn a ton from people when you can ask them what they see, you know. And then for me, prayer. I prayed and asked God for help when I was so overwhelmed. And he gave me Anthony, which was a huge solution.
Yeah.
A huge answer to prayer and a big solution to what all of us needed. He fits me and the kids so well, and now he works with the company with me, and it's just a great fit from every angle. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And, I knew him because Brad and I were doing a backyard project, and we were putting a pool in, and he was the concrete guy doing our pool deck.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then he became a tenant in my commercial property, and there he was. I mean, he was right there in my backyard. I didn't even know as I was praying, like God already had the answer.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah.
So I'm very hopeful I'm on a good trajectory to get to a more healthy place. But I've chosen to keep the company and stay in the role as both owner and CEO mostly because I love my team. I have an amazing team. Brad built a great team. I've been able to add to it, and we actually have meetings, Q2 in-person meetings starting Thursday, and we're going to have a room of like 8 people. And there used to be like 3, and so that's really fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going to do it at the house?
We're going to do it at Cotter, actually. Can we? I'm going to ask you. Can we use the conference room?
Yes.
Thank you.
It might be booked, though.
Oh, okay.
So we'll just
I
check.
have a backup plan.
But yeah, totally.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Sorry, not in the habit. He bought the building from me, so I'm not in the habit of asking if I can use the conference room. I'll get a backup plan.
I remember before Brad's diagnosis, type science. Right?
Yeah, type science.
Yeah, and I know you're super excited about it. I was super excited about it, and where's like as far as, and we brought you on because you are, I consider you an expert on this and personality type, and it's just so helpful for everybody that hears it. Where are you at with that side of things in your life now, or looking towards the future? Do you have any kind of
Yeah, I'm just as curious as you are.
Right.
Yeah, I'm curious what is going to come next. But I feel like all the different experiences in my life have built different competencies. And I know how God works. He gives you things for a reason, and then you add to it. And it may look disjointed for a second. Why did I get my degree in math? And then I went into ministry, and now I'm like learning this psychology stuff. Now I'm running a business. Like, what is all these pieces? Well, you put your competencies, experiences together, and you are able to offer a unique contribution to society. Maybe nobody else has, the experiences to meet that need. And so I don't know what that's leading up to in parenting. That's been probably the main thing that I've done. But I would like to get back into doing personality typing stuff at some point, but I use it every day.
Sure.
So I feel like, but I do love talking about it. I've missed that. One thing, Gutter had an idea for us to collaborate together, mother and son, and maybe do a podcast on parenting. And I think that would be super cool. I'd really enjoy doing that with you.
My mom, Codie Klinock, she mentioned a couple times earlier in this episode that she didn't want to get too deep into anything this episode because it's a lot of stuff. But if you are interested in learning about that stuff, then I would say keep an eye out for our podcast. The name is probably going to be Are We There Yet?
I like Are We There Yet?
Yeah, so do I.
The kid's saying, Are we there yet?
Yeah.
And the mom's like, Are we there yet? Like, in a whole nother sense. When is this child going to be ready to be on his own,
Oh,
you know?
right. Yes. Yeah, I like that too.
Are we there yet?
I think
I
it's
would
a great
say-
name for a parenting podcast.
If you enjoy listening to my mom talk about this stuff like I do, then keep an eye out for Are We There Yet, which is probably going to be Myers-Briggs typing, parenting, personal development, all through the lens of a Christian
Emotional,
worldview.
yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Emotional intelligence too. That's
Yeah.
a big thing I've had to learn.
Yeah.
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 All those topics.
So, shameless plug.
No, that's great. That's great.
Good job, Gunner.
It's always good to put it out there too. Yeah. And
Now you got to do it.
yeah, now you got to do it.
You just told thousands of people.
We will do it.
Yeah.
We will do it.
Yeah. And let me know how I can help.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. I am curious of like ADHD because I know Brad had ADHD and you diagnosed ADHD. So do I.
Yeah.
And we're all ENFPs.
Yes.
So just how do those 4 letters correlate with a certain type of 4 letters?
I'm super curious about that too because, you know, what I understand about ADHD is the frontal lobe of the brain stays in the sleep state and doesn't wake up like most people's do. Therefore, the executive functions are more difficult, you know. So a lot of people with ADHD, they'll self-medicate with caffeine or other things that help wake up that brain, or you can get on medication for that. And exercise helps, all that stuff, right? But then when you look at it, you're like, why is it like every person I've ever heard that has ADHD has a P at the end of their personality type? And then I have barely met any ENFP who doesn't have ADHD. So
Right,
then
yeah.
you're like, well, what's what?
Right.
I don't know that I have any conclusions on that.
Okay.
But for sure, the N and the P create so much curiosity for discovery that it makes it difficult to focus on one thing.
If you're not interested in it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, when I say focus on one thing, I mean, because you can focus on one thing, but you're exploring all about it.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right.
'Cause
I
we've
need to be
got-
more specific on how I.
Yeah. Because with ADHD, we have the superpower of hyper-focusing.
That's true.
Right? Like if we
That's
can
true.
get in and get
Yeah.
deep in rabbit holes.
Yeah.
So like looking at all aspects of something.
Yes.
I
But
think-
even but as soon as something is explored, you become bored, is my
Yes.
understanding.
Yeah.
So then you want to pioneer the unexplored territory. But as soon as you know that, it's no longer as interesting. It's no longer new.
As in, I haven't seen a card trick in a while.
That's right. I did card tricks, and I even said it too. I was like, "Hey, this is my thing right now, doing card tricks, and we'll see what comes next." Like I'm acutely aware that I've got those card tricks. I pull them out, but
Yeah.
at some point I was like,
So you definitely can focus or hyper focus on it, but the tendency or just the curiosity to go exploring again and again and again. Not everybody's like that, right? And
Right.
so does that look like some of the traits of ADHD? I think so.
Yeah.
But what's what? I don't know. I've always been curious about
I know,
that
yeah,
too.
yeah. I was,
Yeah. So last thing I would like to say
yeah,
is that as an INTJ, you contribute so well to society with your unbiased, analytical conclusions that are so helpful for taking confusing puzzles and solving them and bringing it down to a digestible thesis that people can understand. And then when they ask more, sure enough, you can go point 1, point 2, point 3, and you can help them. And they want more, then you could subset ABC, you know, and you're just a really good teacher like that. And you're able to communicate very clearly in a pace where it's super easy to understand.
she's talking to Bo.
I'm talking
Listeners,
to you.
yeah,
So,
thank you.
yes.
Because that's pretty much my favorite thing to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that you're doing it, and you should keep doing it. Whether it's speaking it or writing it, keep producing. Okay?
All right.
And as an ENFP, you're a values-driven person. So the F, your core values come through in everything that you do, plus creativity. So the ENFP is contributing to society with their creativity and humor and exploration added to your particular core values. The cool thing about core values, we'll have to do a whole episode on this another time. Those are environmentally influenced based on the way you grew up, shapes your core values. So from one ENFP to another, core values could be totally different. But the fact that they lead with them and it colors all that they do, that is true to your type. And so just the beauty of both values and creativity together with what you do is so enjoyable for the world to take in.
I love that.
You're like the flavor of life, man.
Yes, lots of flavor.
Lots of flavor.
Lots of protein.
All right, let's wrap this up.
Yeah, that was a great note to end on. Anything else? Anything else you want to add?
This has been great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Oh, this was great.
We got to have you
I
back.
love you guys.
Like, what? Yeah, I love you too, Codie. This is just scratching the surface of what we can talk about. I'm so happy I'm so happy we got you on this podcast before anybody else. Yeah, that snagged you up. Yeah, Bo.
I'm trying to think of something smart to say, but I'm pretty much out.
Yeah. Just go with your gut. Bo, I
just put me on the spot.
I love making Bo uncomfortable.
Here's one thing you never do to Timmy. Tell him what not to do. Or what not to say. Or what not to...
No,
because it becomes his playlist from there. Like it's his checklist of things to do, things to say.
Yeah, one thing we didn't mention is Codie runs a business, GoMinis. So if you all need self-storage, portable self-storage, GoMinis.
Oh, wait. Well, let me just put in a little plug for GoMinis.
Yeah.
Like, we've used GoMinis a number of times. One time we were remodeling our kitchen. Took like 6 months. Like, we had stuff piled into other parts of our house. But for the most part, we took it, and Codie's company brought us a container, sat it right in our driveway. It's a nice looking container, so my neighbors weren't complaining about it. Not that this prickly T would have cared much if they did, but they weren't. And we loaded it all up. And so instead of having a self-storage, which I'm a big fan of self-storage, and we've got some, but instead of having to drive across town and grab something out of a box, it's right there.
Right there.
A couple of months before we moved, we have the container delivered, and we load that thing at our pace as we box things up as we go. And then on moving day, they come grab it, drop it in the next driveway, and you just start it. It makes the super stressful things about moving, remodeling, that stuff. It just takes a lot of the pain out of all that. And so if you are so inclined,
if you need something like that,
I would highly recommend GoMinis wherever you live, because there's probably some there.
Yeah, GoMinis.
And they're much better containers than the other guys.
Yeah, GoMinis.com.
Yeah, we have 20 footers.
20 footers, baby. 20 footers. If anybody wanted to reach out to you regarding, they were fascinated by this. They're like, oh, I want Codie to come observe my kids for an afternoon or any of that. Is that something that you would?
Or maybe you would rather not have that call right now.
Right.
I get those calls on occasion, and I really appreciate them. And I normally say, check back in with me in like a year. I'm definitely handfulled at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. GoMinis.com. And then we'll have
That's
Codie
right.
back when,
I'm minding my limits right now.
Minding the limits. Yeah, we'll have Codie back when their podcast launched and the book is written. Thank you all so much. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe, ding that little bell, send us comments. We're trying to get Barbara Corcoran on the show. So the more subscribers we got, the bigger the guests. I don't know if you get much bigger than another member of the Barron family, but we've got a newsletter every Thursday, free weekly newsletter.
You can go to subscribe.wgbarron.com, and what we have there is basically some curated information on some things that are helpful in business. So negotiation, leadership, company culture, and it always includes the latest episode of the podcast.
You'll never miss it.
Delivered right to your inbox on Thursday morning.
Some of these that you are hearing right now, we already did live in the moment where you can interact with us. That's another reason to subscribe to YouTube, because we're doing some of these with guests and we're doing it live, which
That's
is
right.
Been super fun. Another thing, if you've gotten any value out of this podcast, Bo and I love doing it, putting it together. If you're listening on Apple right now, hit our name and then scroll down past a few of the episodes. You'll see where the reviews are and how to leave a review. And if you do leave a review, we'll shout you out.
And it was Jay. Cats Fan 84 is Jay.
Yeah. Love you, Jay.
Hey, Madge. Hey, Beamer. Hey, Mom and Dad.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Bye, Alice.
Bye, Alice.
Bye, Alice.
Love you, sister. Love you, brother.
Love y'all.
Love you too.